Hi there, this is Adam Scruggs, and for my Reading 520 book study, I decided to use Unspeakable Acts, Unnatural Practices, Flaws and Fallacies in Scientific Reading Instruction, and it is by Frank Smith. One chapter that I found interesting was chapter 7, So how do you identify a new word? Well, if you think about it, words are just our spoken language put into writing so that you can read it. And a lot of people might come to a word, whether it be, a student that's in elementary school that has never seen a lot of words before. In that case, they can use phonics. But whenever you get into upper levels of education, or even us as adults, you might come to a word that you've never seen before. And so I thought that this was applicable for everybody. And he does talk about phonics and phonemic awareness, but there are some words that just because we have phonics, there might not be a sound that you could pair to the way that the letters are written. An example would be whenever he speaks of pulled with the ed at the end, it makes a D sound, whereas walked makes a T sound. And the only way that you might know that is by listening to somebody else speak, or any of the prior knowledge of whether somebody told you that you pronounced it incorrectly and they corrected you, or you might be watching a TV show or just having a lecture in class. That might be some of the ways that you can get feedback to understand the word. So, how would we teach a child to identify a word that they've never seen before? Well, first, we need to realize that we don't have to understand how to say the word before, but first, we need to understand the meaning. So, say for example, in the book, he mentions the word glurp. And so if you hear the sentence, I left my glurp at home this morning, you might not know what glurp means, but with more context, I left my glurp at home this morning and I got soaked by the rain later in the day. You would be able to infer that it was something to protect you from the rain, whether it might be another word for umbrella, poncho, raincoat, but all of those, it narrows it down, and you know that glurt means something to protect you from the rain. And so first you would read that sentence and you would look at it funny, because I did, and you would just have to use context clues to get the definition of the word. And that is called fast mapping, and that's the tentative meaning that you first get. Now, once you have read and say you've seen glurp 5 or 6 times throughout a couple chapters in the book, at that point you would start to put together with other context clues. You would be able to narrow down that, maybe instead of it being something that protects you from the rain, maybe it is something like a poncho or a rain jacket. After that, you have to look at the structural similarities, where, as I mentioned with the ED, with pulled and walked, or even handed, the ED has an ID sound. Or with an S at the end, cups has an S sound, but beds has a Z sound. And those sounds, the way that we would pronounce that word, we unconsciously get that information, like I said before, whether it would be from, watching a TV show, or you're trying to use that word in a sentence and somebody says, you pronounce that way, I pronounce it this way. And this chapter made me realize, too, how, foreign people that are learning the English language, that makes me realize why they would have issues with some of our sounds, because they can't just go off of a textbook phonemic sound. They don't have the context. So by using the context of a sentence along with previously acquired knowledge, at that point, then you could attempt to pronounce the word.